guys can obviously see, the media fell for the trap, and this little, let's just say, deal
Would you
worked.
like to ask me questions and then let me answer them, or would you like to debate me on these topics? I noticed that when you had Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, you gave them multiple choice answers to the questions that you asked, and you allowed them to answer the questions. I'm happy to be here to talk about policy, but if you're going to interrupt me every single time that I open my mouth, then why am I even doing this? So please ask a question, and I'd ask you to be polite enough to let me answer it.
Man,
You hear the people who are filming. Did they kill some cats?
listen, man. There go a cat right there. His ass better get missing, man. Look like his homies on.
I'm sorry, that was good. His ass better get...
The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to,
But it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana.
Before we get started, I want you guys to know this. This video right here is for the most part to discuss how it was that the mainstream media, and why it is it's actually very much a white pill that the mainstream media is actually beginning to cover this, because obviously the plan here was to get the mainstream media to actually cover the story in Ohio, and why it is that it actually worked, and also at the same time why it is that it is unintentionally dooming the side that they're carrying water for. But we'll get to that in this video, so make sure you guys stick around. Now, if you're somebody who believes that this story about dogs and cats being eaten in Springfield, Ohio is a load of BS, and you think that Trump was just being, how do I say, hyperbolic and full of it and paranoid on the debate stage, and of course, you probably missed the fact that this right here was like the #1 trending issue for roughly 3 days after that. And of course, given the fact that people are memeing it and creating songs, stuff like that there. And now, of course, you've got CNN out here and all the mainstream media saying that there have been a lot of bomb threats called in, even though, as you guys will see, Dana Bash talk about this, it quickly gets rebuffed roughly a day or so later.
Of saying things that are wrong and actually causing the hospitals, the schools, the government buildings to be evacuated because of bomb threats, because of the cats and dogs thing.
East 33 separate bomb threats, each one of which has been responded to, and each one of whom has been found as a hoax. So 33 threats, 33 hoax. I want to make that very, very clear. None of these had any validity at all.
Now, real quick, I did not make this video to give Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, any form of praise, especially given the fact that when this situation first became a big-time problem, Mike DeWine thought it would be a good idea to send translators to help these people speak English rather than send law enforcement there. Seriously, Mike DeWine is probably about as useless as tits on a board. He's about as popular as a turd in a swimming pool. This guy absolutely 100% sucks. However, I do got to give the man a little bit of credit for telling the truth, and that right there being all the bomb threats and all the Proud Boy nonsense going on in Springfield is, for the most part, a good old-fashioned hoax, and that the media, of course, is, in fact, making it a lot worse. It's almost like he's the Mitch McConnell of governors. But still, though, we got to talk about this story because, obviously, the mainstream media is not very smart, and they seem to not realize that they're actually highlighting Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's failed record on immigration and the border crisis itself. It was actually beautifully handled. So if you guys remember correctly, the other day this happened.
Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people.
And of course, ever since then, people have been going to Google, they've been going to Bing, to their search engine, they've been typing in Springfield, Ohio, dogs and cats or Haitian migrants, and they've been getting all kinds of stories, all kinds of different perspectives. If you go to actually type it in, you get a lot of people talking about what's actually really and truly going on there. The fact that it's widely believed that dogs and cats are even being eaten. And of course, there's also this image from Christopher Rufo, which, by the way, was covered by Tim Pool, where he went into much further detail. We'll get to that here in a second. But of course, if you look into this right here, you find out some pretty nefarious crap is going on. J.D. Vance, by the way, he did an interview with Dana Bash at CNN where she went out of her way to completely 100% interrupt him every chance she got. And, of course, it would ultimately lead to this infamous moment that has gone viral.
We're not allowed to talk about these problems because some psychopaths are threatening violence. We can condemn the violence on the one hand, but also talk about the terrible consequences of Kamala Harris's open border on the other hand. Now, let me just fact check a couple of other things that you said, Dana, because it's important. You said that all of these migrants are in the country legally. Not to say that they're here legally. That is a terrible indictment of her amnesty policies that have further opened the border and further
but it's
caused
not illegal.
terrible migration into this country.
You might not agree with the policy, and obviously you don't, which is totally fair and legitimate. There are policy disagreements all the time. But the fact is it is the law because President Biden and Vice President Harris are. But I don't want to frankly go down this conversation.
Actually, the entire debate has gone viral, and I got to tell you right now, I think the person who probably responded to it the best was Mr. Kwame Brown, which I'll try to link that video in the description box, as well as the interview itself, because it was a relatively long one, and I would play highlights from that interview outside of what you guys just saw, and of course what you guys saw at the very, very beginning, which of course led to another interview at CNN, and another incident where of course the person tried to interrupt, this time Tom Emmer, which is the one we're going to be covering in this video here. The fact of the matter is this right here: the mainstream media does not seem to realize that what's going on in Ohio, while very, very bad, while awful, and the residents have got to deal with this crap, they don't seem to realize that they are unintentionally, or intentionally, if you might want to say, if you really and truly are conspiratorial, they are actually covering Kamala Harris's failures when it comes to the actual border itself and border security. Also, given the fact that we did have a presidential candidate get a second assassination attempt on his life, people are starting to wake up and people are starting to see that the mainstream media is complicit in everything that's going on. We've been saying it for a very, very long time that the mainstream media is, in fact, the enemy of the people. So why is this a big deal? Well, not only is the Trump administration and not only are Republicans getting exactly what it is that they wanted, this story actually being covered, but they're also getting the memes out there and the songs, which, of course, you guys are seeing people react to. They're eating the dogs, eating the cat stuff here in the B-roll footage. But the one that really and truly spikes my attention the most is this idiot right here, Hassan Piker, practically sharing the song and giving Trump the additional help that he needs. Great job. Seriously. One of our best assets of us on the right is actually the idiot on the left named Hassan Piker, the grifter socialist who is actually a multi-millionaire whose uncle gave him a job and gave him his platform. And of course, this guy who pretends to be a socialist is obviously very, very much a capitalist and hates Donald Trump. And now, of course, he's helping him out whether he knows it or not. Kind of fascinating how these people ultimately end up just destroying themselves. The self-defeatism out of these people was absolutely insane. And obviously, as I mentioned before, the mainstream media can't help themselves but fall for the trap. But the question still remains. Are dogs and cats being eaten? Well, let's go to the beanie guy.
We have the report from Chris Rufo. He says that we have discovered that migrants are, in fact, eating cats in Ohio. He says, we have verified with multiple witnesses and visual cross-references that African migrants in Dayton, the next city over from Springfield, barbecued these cats last summer. Now, in this image, it's a TikTok from a year ago. You can see animals roasting on the grill. The response from the left, from the corporate press, is they look like chickens. They look like some kind of animal, I guess. However, the legs are pulled up. And so we'll go through this. As many people are saying they look like chickens.
The image that Tim is talking about is an image that was shared by Christopher Rufo, the guy who was very, very much on the whole debunking CRT stuff, who backed DeSantis and said he would never vote for Trump this past cycle. And now, of course, he's obviously come around like most, let's just say most DeSantites. So those who were very much on that train during the primaries have come around because obviously reality's begun to set in. He is the one that shared the photo, did an article about it, and of course that article has gone viral, and he claims he has more and more photos and more proof. Andy Ngo is somebody else who's also been reporting on this. And of course you've got people saying that the thing on the grill was probably a chicken. However, if you look closely at it, I don't think chickens bow out like that. It looks to me like what happened in this case was that somebody got a hold of a cat, skinned it, and then threw it on top of the grill and then walked away. Now, there are people out there who are pointing out that it could be white people who are actually doing this. And of course, you've got the conspiratorial side of the left, which, by the way, they totally claim that they're not conspiracy theorists. They believe that it could be white people setting up Haitians as a hoax. I don't see why the hell they would do that. But then again, at the same time, though, if you actually look into that nation's past, and I'm not saying this about all Haitians, but they do have people, one guy in particular named Barbecue, who had to go out of his way to defend himself and saying that, look, I'm not eating people, when the evidence was pretty clear that he was eating people. There's also people out there stating that cats and dogs are actually a delicacy in Haiti. Either way, though, you should probably lock up Fido. You should probably lock up Shadow. You should probably lock up the dogs and the cats and get them the hell out of there. It doesn't exactly look like a safe environment for them. And as a guy who actually loves dogs, and I'm not really much of a cat lover, but of course these kittens are absolutely cute, especially these ones that are being used in the meme war. Yeah, it would be a good idea to get these people out there. However, this next little segment, this next little clip, I think is the one that, let's just say that you make light of a situation, and when, of course, the situation is made light of, people tend to go with where the comedy is at, meaning that it's probably going to help Trump out in more ways than one. And also at the same time, it's also going to get this situation eventually crushed and taken care of. And of course, some of these people will probably just go back. But let's just watch this next bit.
I'm leaning slight towards cats on this one. Here's the video in question. I'll play it for you.
Yo, what is this they got on the grill?
Did they kill some cats?
Man,
You hear the people who are filming. Did they kill some cats?
listen, man. There go a cat right there. His ass better get missing, man. Look like his homies on
I'm sorry, that was good. His ass better get missing.
the grill, man. What the fuck? Yo.
You better get missing, man. I love that. You better get missing. That right there to me is absolutely hilarious. But we got more.
Yo.
So that's the clip. We have this from Chris Rufo, the cat eaters of Ohio. The establishment media called it a racist myth, but is it? Now, I will add, Chris Rufo's report on this is that one instance does not prove it's happening all over the place. Could be an isolated incident. There's no evidence they're eating dogs like Donald Trump said. This is just more and more evidence. Now, CBS News says not true. Ohio police dispute new allegations immigrants are eating pets in Dayton. Chris Rufo has responded, but let's start from the beginning. Now, of course, we know that Donald Trump shocked audience of the debate by saying they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. And we got, to our great luck, an awesome song out of it. An awesome song with Hassan Piker, the leftist, scream.
That bit about CBS will come up a little bit later on in the video, especially when we get to the CNN section, because obviously both of these networks are falling for it. As a matter of fact, all the liberal media outlets are falling for it, but let's get back on track. And of course, this right here would eventually lead to another one of those great exchanges on CNN where someone who's got to toe the line for the federal government, for the establishment, has to have a conversation with a Republican congressman who's just simply pointing out that this story right here should have been covered a long time ago, and maybe if you had covered this story before, this entire issue would have been taken care of, or most importantly, if you had secured the border, we wouldn't be having a conversation about that, because in reality, what the hell is really going on here is that the mainstream media, as I said before, does not seem to realize that they are actually highlighting Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's border failures. But let's watch.
When called out for saying that he's creating a story here, J.D. Vance tried to clean it up. But the Republican governor just yesterday from Ohio, he called this continued talk about it and this storyline disgusting. He said a piece of garbage. Does this continued focus and digging in by your candidates create a problem for you guys down ballot?
Well, this story is actually about a program, an illegal program, I would suggest,
It's
created by
legal.
Kamala
It is
Harris
technically
and Joe
legal.
Biden. Well, you can say technical.
Okay.
It's been paused because of all kinds of fraud. And listen, Kate, if you don't want to talk about the Cuba, Haitian, Nicaraguan, Venezuelan program that was created by Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, which brought tens of thousands of migrants to this country.
You can talk about this policy without creating stories. The governor of the state of Ohio calls it a piece of garbage.
Actually, what Mike DeWine really did was he went up there with his glasses on and he just kind of gave the real feeble, if you're from Ohio, let me know how you feel. He just kind of gave the the feeble look, oh, I'm scared of the media. That's really what he did. He didn't really call it garbage outright, but still at the same time, though, as I said before, DeWine would eventually come out and say that everything else going on as far as bomb threats, crap like that, was an absolute hoax. But then again, at the same time, like I said before, Mike DeWine is about as useless as tits on a board, but let us continue.
That are shut down, they're going remote today because of concerns over the environment it has created around this. Does a digging in on the incorrect, not misinformation story create a problem for you guys down ballot? There is nothing wrong, as we've seen in recent politics, Congressman, saying I made a mistake or I have an evolving position, truly. But digging in on this when it's like transparently seems no one locally wants this to continue.
Okay. Now, before I play the rest of this, so that way you guys can see Tom Emmer respond and absolutely destroy this woman, it looks to me like this girl does not seem to understand exactly what's happening here. You see, what's really happening in this case is that the mainstream media, who, by the way, loves to not cover stories like this, who loves to carry water for the Democrats, hence one of the reasons why is that Democrats have gotten so smug is because they know the media, they know people were not going to hold them accountable. I do believe that there will be some of that accountability this presidential cycle, but still at the same time, though, they've gotten to the point to where they've gotten 100% totally smug and they're not honest with people and they know they can get away with it. This woman does not seem to realize that her network, CNN, whether they know it or not, are actually helping the Republicans out in more ways than one. And by the way, that makes me absolutely happy. And I bust out laughing at this because obviously I don't want these Democrats in charge anymore. I'd much rather have the damn Republicans in charge. But still, though, the point is this right here. They don't seem to get it, that they are actually highlighting the failures of the current administration they've been carrying water for the entire time. And it just makes the media look more and more and more dishonest. They can't play the pro wrestling game here anymore, getting up their side of the aisle, whipped up in a frenzy, which, of course, they've always been whipped up in a frenzy, and they've always been insane in their souls. Of course, I explained in a previous video, have been ripped out of them. They're not who the hell they're supposed to be, or they're not who the hell they profess themselves to be. And, of course, these people have gone full-blown demon-possessed. But the fact of the matter is this right here. This woman does not seem to understand or realize that these people fell for what was possibly the perfect laden trap. You've got a situation in Ohio where cats and dogs are being eaten by a bunch of Haitian migrants. And as much as they try to say it's a bunch of BS, people are finding more and more and more evidence because, of course, when Trump decided to mention it on the debate stage, it became a searchable term that people began to look into, and it spiked through the roof. And then to go on top of that, these people don't seem to realize that at this moment in time, from the governor to the mayor to everybody who's covering the story to everybody saying it's a bunch of crap, they don't seem to understand or seem to get that they are, in fact, for the most part, not coming off as believable, and they're coming off more as in defending the irreprehensible. Let's watch this last part.
You've had thousands of people dropped in this country. By the way, you say it's technically legal. Then why did they pause it? Because they had so much fraud in the program. The American people need to know that what the Biden-Harris administration did. Well, here, just let me finish, Kate.
We talk policy all the time. We sit down, but like,
I'd like to.
This one. Then get past the wrong and then move on to the policy.
How about talk about the wrong? The wrong is that we've got an administration that is lawless, and they allowed migrants from these different countries to come into this country, and they flew them into places like Ohio and Minnesota and California.
If this story of eating pets is completely factually wrong and is not true, you are okay with the story continuing and your candidate continue to talk about it.
I hope you start reporting on the problem that causes all of this, which is an administration. Kamala Harris is responsible for allowing thousands of migrants here improperly because they lied on their applications.
Will you answer that yes or no?
You realize 1,000 of these applications
I take your hope on what we want to talk about.
24 phone numbers.
Exactly. Tom Emmer did exactly what it is he was supposed to do. He was supposed to get up there and tell these people you need to actually report the story, you need to report it accurately, and you need to actually do some on-the-ground, hard-hitting coverage. That's basically what he was trying to say. However, at the same time, though, he was also able to get this woman to admit that they've been, carrying water for the administration, and, of course, to go on top of that, they're highlighting this administration's failures. I mean, to me, this right here was almost like an inadvertently perfectly laid trap that Republicans probably did not think they were going to be able to get. But they've got the mainstream media practically holding water for the Harris team, which, by the way, we all know they have been, while at the same time they've also been attacking the Harris team for what? That's right, dodging interviews. The fact of the matter is that you're not going to see the Harris team come out here at any point in time, which is something that, quite frankly, was highlighted in the interview with J.D. Vance that Dana Bash did on Sunday, which, of course, some people were saying we'd love to report a murder because, quite frankly, he did, in fact, murder her. He would also later on go on to murder Kristen Welker at NBC later on in the morning. The fact of the matter is the mainstream media now has to cover this story, and they're also finding out that a lot of the things that, quite frankly, they've been covering up, or a lot of things that they're saying are not true, are, in fact, becoming true. And, of course, people, after a while, just look at the mainstream media and say, yeah, you guys just aren't credible at all. Now, why there be the case? Well, we all know that these people lie like crazy, but there's one more thing that I just touched on earlier that I did not cover that I'm going to go ahead and cover the close of this video. That right there is the Harris campaign, the Harris team. You see, these people are the perfect example of the people who know that the mainstream media will carry water for them. These right here are the perfect example of the people who, quite frankly, know that they can practically get away with murder in this particular environment that, of course, we have with our media. The fact of the matter is this right here. The Kamala Harris campaign, they're not going to come out and answer any questions for a multitude of reasons. Number one, she can't answer questions. She's terrible at that. They know this right here, so they obviously got to hide her. However, if this election does, in fact, come down to what I've been saying, it will always come down to the American people versus the mainstream media. The people are starting to wake up and see exactly the grasp the media has on people, and they're beginning to wake up. It's also showing up in the polling data. And you've also got a lot of people looking at the actual crosstabs in these polls to see that they're mostly bunk. The fact of the matter is this right here. Whether the mainstream media knows it or not, them being forced to tell the truth actually ends them as an entity, which is really and truly what the hell they are. They're probably the biggest entity when it comes to what's going on in this nation. But, of course, we will talk more about that in Wednesday's video because Alex Jones did a segment that I quite frankly want to cover, as well as a segment that Anna Kasparian covered, which I thought was very interesting. I wouldn't say covered, but let's just say she checked Jen Younger in a way I didn't think would be you'd be able to do. But still, though, we'll get to that on Wednesday. Fact of the matter is this right here. The mainstream media, they fell for this hook, line, and sinker, and now they're actually doing their job, which is to cover what's going on. And, of course, that thing that's going on is people eating dogs and cats. And why is that the case? Well, because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they left our border wide open and brought in more and more people to create brand new voter bases. But you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sound off in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.